Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Jim Fournier. Jim is an entrepreneur and social media visionary who works at the intersection of technology and humanitarianism. He is the founder and CEO of numerous successful companies, including PlanetWork, Climate Path, and J-Link Labs. Most recently, Jim launched True Social, a social media app designed to reestablish the basis of truth online. Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, Jim.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Well, first off, Jim, why do you do what you do?
I think it originally comes from motivation about the state of the world and what we're all facing together, and how to leave a better world for future generations.
And why do you think we need to improve the quality of community on the internet?
Well, at this point, pretty much everything we do in society rests on the internet. No matter what area of activity, for-profit, nonprofit, everything really, depends on the net. And we've been at this a long time. About 20 years ago, we convened a conversation about using information technology for the real problems in the world. And in some ways, things have only gotten much worse since then. So a lot of people now are talking about the problems on the internet, the failure of social media, the elevation of really just fake news and the worst aspects of humanity. There's also a mirror side of that I've been interested in for 20 years now, which is how do we create conditions on the internet to help communities of practice, communities of interest, deal with the real problems we're facing in this world? Climate change, loss of biodiversity, real economic models that allow most people to live well, Black Lives Matter. These are hard problems, and they require a networked society. And what we have right now on the internet is just the exact opposite of that. We have a system we call social media that is actually leveraging social cues that we've evolved over a couple million years in ways that are completely different than how we actually exist and interact with each other socially in a good way. And these cues are being leveraged for a business model that at this point is failing pretty much everybody except maybe two companies. And the social dilemma kind of explained how the way ad tech has evolved, it rewards emotionally provocative content over real information. So we've been thinking for a long time about how do we create conditions on the internet that allow real communities of practice to exchange information with each other, to disseminate that out to society in a way where you can tell where things came from and you can begin to reestablish trust in professionals and scientists and academics and people who actually know what they're talking about, and where you can kind of tell the difference between something that might come from a real community that has reputation and standing with each other versus some mysterious thing that's appeared on YouTube asserting that there's a conspiracy. One of my questions is always, who paid for that anyway? It's like there's a tremendous amount of content sort of claiming conspiracy that's being funded magically out of somewhere. In some cases, it's being funded by the fact that you can get ad revenue for putting up anything that's provocative that people will watch and share with their friends. So it rewards the worst. So we're working on and have built technology to support digitally signed content and connect identity and reputation to that. And these are the foundation of beginning to do something real on the internet. And then we also have ways of using that same technology to establish some new business models that would reward people for republishing good quality content, and reward those that created it and create entities that are publishing. You can't do anything without creating an economic feedback loop that works. That's why we have the internet we have now. And what we need is not going to come from altruism. It's going to come from building a well-designed system on a solid foundation that lets people actually see what's going on. We also come from a real background of, I'm suspicious of truthiness. Steve Colbert's line. I love that one. There can't be any single arbiter of truth. Not us, not anybody, not the big social media platforms. And you can't achieve that by hiring police to look for bad content and root it out on the big platforms. The design of the big platforms is basically broken. It can't solve the problem. So the way we're going at it is to create a network of real social groups that can subscribe to each other. And then each group has curators, and groups subscribe to other groups. We call them hubs. And this creates a situation where we delegate both the authority and the power and the control to create good quality content that others can subscribe to and republish. And then you have a kind of ecosystem and a feedback loop. What's the reputation of this group that's publishing? Where did they get the content that they're publishing? And we provide a way to see that. The academics call it data provenance. It's the record of where something came from and what the reputation of the parties that created it or reposted it is. And to build up that interlocking network of real social organizations, but where social isn't just disaggregated individual people isolated on the internet. Social is real groups of people that either know each other, or companies or organizations or work groups, or the real structures of society that need to be represented on the internet in a way that gives them power and authority and control and responsibility to each other. So this whole thing is built on a data sharing layer that we originally built to solve GDPR, where individual people can decide who to share what information with under a cryptographically signed automated agreement. And it creates the possibility where I could share my information with a bunch of organizations in one click. And if I change some of my information, those that are in good standing will get pushed the new copy. And this not only solves GDPR, it creates a direct marketing relationship between people and companies who desperately want it and are being disintermediated by the internet. And also in the long run can solve the trillion-dollar problem of bad data that the Fortune 5000 spend a huge amount of money on. So people talk about data as the new oil, but really, I guess we're trying to do data as the new solar. That there's a completely different way of handling data on the internet that's better for everybody. And it's hard to get started. So we're bootstrapping our way into it with publishing, and then publishing as a social network.
And Jim, we have an exit question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours and why are they a hero?
I've got a few, but I'm going to pick Bucky Fuller. Buckminster Fuller was got a crazy genius. He invented the geodesic dome. He was the first to foresee the use of what became the internet, computers and communication, to think about the real problems. He called it the world game, and anticipated a lot of what happened just before the computer age.
And lastly, Jim, how can somebody contact you?
I'm Jim at tru.net, tru.net. And if you get on the beta, I can also be reached there at my hub on Tru. True is in early beta right now. We're first accepting requests from people working on youth climate, Black Lives Matter, sort of grassroots movements.
Jim Fournier, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed
it. Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.